There are a few things that we British need in our lives. Now, we might not buy them all the time, you might not even love them or like them in some respects, but it's the comfort of knowing that they're there and they're British. Branston Pickle, Tetley Tea, Mars Bars, the Sun newspaper, the Beatles, Oasis, and of course the Vauxhall Astra. Now, the Astra replaced the Vauxhall Viva back in 1980 as Vauxhall's compact family car, and it was the first Vauxhall compact family car to be offered with front-wheel drive. It was also the first to offer both petrol and diesel engines, and over the next 40 years and 8 generations, you've been able to buy an Astra as either a hatchback, a saloon, a coupe, a convertible, even estates. They've been people's first cars, they've been their family cars, they've been police cars, they've been rally cars. But through all of that, they've been charmingly British, because the Astra has always been built at their plant in Ellesmere Port up in Liverpool. But all of that has now changed. You see, a few years back, Vauxhall were sold by General Motors to the PSA Group, the owners of Peugeot and Citroën. And then a couple of years after that, they were integrated into the global brand of Stellantis. And under this 8th generation Astra's platform, it shares a huge amount with the Peugeot 308 and Citroën EC4. In other words, it's a lot less cheddar and a lot more camembert. But that does mean one very important thing, because for the first time, the Astra can now go electric. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the new Vauxhall Astra Electric, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we get started on this week's road test review of Vauxhall's new Astra Electric, it is of course that time where I would ask you to make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, press the bell button that's down below, because then that way you'll be notified if our next video is uploaded and has gone live. Once you've watched it, if you do enjoy it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and of course don't forget, leave me your comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on the cars we review, such as the new Vauxhall Astra Electric, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. So, 40 years of the Astra. As I say, it's it's been a staple part of British motoring. This is now in its 8th generation, which came out as a petrol engine car a couple of years back. But as I say, it was always built at Ellesmere Port. It was built elsewhere in the world as well, but the British cars were always built at Ellesmere Port. But that's changed now under Stellantis. Now, Ellesmere Port is still there, and it's a fully electrified plant that's going to build Vauxhall's electrified van range. And as I said before, the Astra now shares its platform, the CMP2 platform, with other cars from the Stellantis group, such as the Citroën C4 and of course the Peugeot 308, which means that it's a multi-energy platform. In other words, you're able to buy the car with internal combustion engine, hybrid, and of course now fully electric. So the appeal of the Astra should be as wide as it always has been. But before we move on, let's take a look at the main points about the new Vauxhall Astra Electric. Well, the Astra continues as a C-sector 5-door hatchback, competing with the likes of the Renault Megane E-Tech, Volkswagen ID.3, MG4, and of course its own in-house relations of the Peugeot E308 and Citroën EC4. It can be had with petrol and hybrid engines, as well as the first fully electric model. And as well as a 5-door hatchback, the Astra Electric can also be had as an estate, or as Vauxhall calls it, the Sports Tourer. It has a usable 51 kilowatt hour battery that should see a range of up to 258 miles on the WLTP cycle. And 3 trim levels are available, with prices starting from just under £38,000 for the hatchback and just under £40,000 for the Sports Tourer. So not exactly cheap then. And that might be a problem when it comes to wearing the Vauxhall badge, because the brand has never been known as a sort of like a premium manufacturer. But then perhaps there's comfort in a familiar face. So is it worth it? Well, the only way that we can find out is by putting it through the actual road test that car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that is the AutoEV one. And talking of comfort and familiarity, we're going to start with styling. And And I think we should, because to be honest with you, I think it's one of the nice points about the new Astra. I think this is a really handsome looking car. Astra has always been quite a nice looking car. I particularly like the Mark II that came out in 1984, especially in sporty GTE guys. But this, I think, is a really good looking car. It looks like a proper C-sector family hatchback. So it's nice to see that they're not trying to chase this sort of the small SUV slash crossover thing by making the Astra into something that it really isn't. What have we got? Well, of course, it's got the new visor graphic, as they say at the front here. So, of course, like we saw in the first Mokka, the Mokka, the electric that we saw a couple of years ago, this is this kind of black panel across here, and you've got these new IntelliLux intelligent headlights. Now, Vauxhall making a big play about these headlights. They've got something crazy, like something like about 68 pixels each side per headlight, which is incredible. And they say these are the best headlights in class. So there we go, well done, they're very good. The visor graphic, you've got your blacked out kind of griffin in the middle. And that'll depend on your trim level, because the design model, we'll go on to trims later, I think has the silver griffin, whereas the GS and the Ultimate, which this one is, gets the blacked out griffin. This visor graphic here, this panel here, does hide all the kind of sensors and gubbins for the advanced driver assistance systems as well. So it does serve a purpose. And as well as that being part of Vauxhall's new design language, we've also got this kind of ridge that comes down the bonnet, kind of goes through the centre here. It's what they call the compass element of the design, because obviously you get 4 points of the compass, so that's what they've done there. And again, I think it's distinctive, it looks nice, it's a good looking car. You've got cooling obviously down at the bottom, you've got another kind of panel there obviously for some of your kind of your radar guided cruise controls, and of course parking sensors, and a nice little camera embedded up there. The bonnet's quite nicely sculpted too. I quite like these kind of shoulders that have the bonnet that then just kind of blend into the curved corners here, which is quite nice. And it's almost kind of semi kind of clamshell, although it sits back at the front, it drops down the side onto these kind of wheel arches, which is quite nice. But yeah, good start. I think it's a good looking car from the front. I particularly like this line here, because as you see, it's the same angle that's there and there. So if you can see that, it kind of does that. I like that kind of attention to detail on design. And then of course you've got your fog lights tucked in there. These aren't vents, they're just kind of bits of kind of plastic aero to help with airflow. But yeah, good looking car. And handsome inside profile as well. I quite like these kind of swollen wheel arches, give a little bit of depth to this kind of panel here. But then you've got a kind of relatively fuss-free kind of doors there. There's a little line that kind of goes up there and a smaller one at the bottom that arcs up. I think they've been doing that for a little while, Vauxhall. 18-inch alloys are standard across the range as well, which is nice to see. There's no differentiation in wheel sizes, whether you go for the design, the GS or the Ultimate. But what you do get on GS and Ultimate is this contrasting black roof and mirrors as well, so it kind of draws your attention down to the bodywork. I think design has full kind of body colour there. Proper, you know, big door handles, not ones that kind of pop out like they do on my Renault Megane long termer. You get proper door handles, and of course your charging flap is located on the driver's side, just at the back there, as to where you'd probably find the fuel flap on the internal combustion engine car. No, as I say, there's no pretension at it being sort of like some kind of crossover. There's no kind of extended black wheel arch things here. There's a nice just kind of the double kind of line for the wheel arch just to give it a little bit of stance. But as I say, these nice kind of swollen hips at the back that you've got at the front. But yeah, handsome looking fella, I think. There's a really nice little bit here on this C-pillar here, C-pillar here, which is a nod to that Mark II Astra I was telling you about that came out back in 1984. Actually, is it also a nod to the Mark I? I think the Mark I also had a little plastic bit of trim there as well. But it's nice to have a little bit of nod to your heritage, I think. Now, before I move around the back, I did mention it, you're going to be able to have this car as a sports tourer, and this is it here. Now, I'm not going to drive this car today because it's pretty much the same to drive, but I think we'll probably get one in for a future test, maybe against the other estate car that you can have in this sort of sector, the MG5. Stay tuned for that. So you can see the difference. You've got a much kind of longer kind of body style here. It's slightly shorter than the old Astra Sports Tourer in terms of overall length, but the wheelbase is longer. And it's got good volume in the rear as well. But as I say, that's for another day. But yeah, if you do want your Astra as an estate, you can. Now, as we come round the back, what is there to talk about here? Well, again, another angle where I think the car is quite a good looking car. You got your shark fin aerial up on the roof. But then also as well, this kind of compass design they talk about, the 4 points. This is probably part of that here, where it just kind of, this little peak that is in the middle of the spoiler with a high level brake light, this little strip of brake light. I do like that. That's nice. I have to admit, I like that. But as I say, good looking car at the back. Rear wiper, obviously. Nice slim lights that come from the side of the car into the boot lid. Your boot lid itself opens, from the badge there, the Griffin badge, which is nice. Nice, feels good and solid as well. And then of course it's blacked out on the GS and Ultimate trims, and you get the black lettering, which is going to be a staple across all the Vauxhall models as well now, with the Astra just across the back. Low set number plate on the hatchback. If it's the estate, the sports tourer you go for, that number plate is on the boot lid to allow a lower loading lip. But then again, he's just at the back. You get fog lights, little rear camera there as well, and then just this nice little kind of bit of black plastic applique across the bottom. So, as I say, a handsome car. Is it the best looking car in its class? No. I would suggest that the Renault Megane E-Tech is a better looking car, personally. That's my personal opinion, not just because I'm driving one at the moment, but I do like that car. But as I say, I like the way that Vauxhall have taken their styling at the moment. I like the fact that they're kind of referencing some of their heritage, but they're pushing sort of like the car up market. They're not going for, as I say, this kind of quirky kind of crossover style that maybe Renault have gone with the Megane kind of look. It's a good looking car, but that's my opinion. What do you think? You're the guys that are out there buying this, and as always, we like to hear from you. So what do you think of the new Astra? Good enough to tempt you? Do you want a current Astra? Would just tempt you into it? As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Okay, let's look at the practicality. 352 litres of boot space, which is the same as the plug-in hybrid model has, so that's quite good, but it does trail the rest of the cars in its class because it's smaller than the Volkswagen ID.3, obviously the Cupra Born and the MG4, and it's way down in the 400 litres of my Renault Megane E-Tech. That being said, it is quite a nice usable space. It's very square. There's no real sort of like issues in terms of wheel arch intrusions or other things. Obviously I don't have my suitcases with me, but you can see I've got the camera bag in there, and there is a bag there for the charging cables and stuff, because there really isn't any storage underneath. That's the other downside with it. Now you can drop the rear seats down, so it's a 60-40 split rear seat, and that will take total capacity up to 1,268 litres. So as I say, it's a reasonable size boot, not the best in class, but it's okay. But if you do want more practicality, bear in mind, as I say, you can buy the Sports Tourer. Now if you do opt for the Sport Tourer, your boot space goes up to 516 litres, which is more than the 479 litres that you get from that other electric estate car that's available, the MG5. And if you drop the rear seats down, which are arranged in a 40-20-40 split, the total capacity goes up to 1,368 litres. However, like the hatchback, there's no underfloor storage for cables, so they have to sit in a bag. And again, because it's a multi-energy platform with the car, there's on either the hatch or the Sports Tourer, there's no space up at the front. Okie doke, how do we fare in the rear of the car? Let's have a little look. Oh! Not bad actually, that's okay. Yeah, it feels pretty much apart. I don't think it's as spacious as, say, the Cupra Born or the Volkswagen ID.3. It's probably a little bit more cramped in some respects than my Megane, but it's not bad. It's pretty decent. I'd suggest it's on a par with what you'd expect for this size of car. I think that seat could probably go a little bit further forward. That's not really my driving position. The downside is obviously multi-platform, multi-energy platform, transmission tunnel in the middle, so you don't get a completely flat floor across, and of course you get these kind of head restraints where you've got to pop them up. But in fairness, I could sit here for a relatively long journey. There's good headroom as well. I mean, obviously if you're closer to 6 foot, you're going to be a bit tighter in here. Obviously I'm just 5'8", but it's okay. It kind of sculpts out at the back here, and you get some nice little kind of lights that you can have. You can just flick on and off. The seat itself feels comfortable. It's kind of sculpted round at the sides. It's quite nice. As I say, you're probably not going to want to put a middle passenger on there because of that transmission tunnel, but there we go. Right, what else have we got? We have fold down armrest, 2 cup holders, a little bit of storage tray there, maybe for a mobile phone. There is a USB-C connector down there, and there's another little kind of storage bin there, maybe for a packet of Polar Mints. Plus there's some, a kind of a relatively okay pocket on the back of the seat for dropping an iPad into, or maybe some maps if you still use maps. Door bins, yeah, they'll take a water bottle relatively well. They are still a bit plasticky, that's the only downside with them, so they'll rattle around and things. There is a load through facility, however, into the boot, which is quite nice. So you can still carry longer loads through and have 2 people sat in the back seat, which is good. Isofix points though, that's my bugbear as usual with Stellantis. They're tucked behind these silly wee zips, which are as stiff as you like, and will break, I think, before you know it. But yeah, that's a bit of a pain, but they are in there. And this is an ultimate model, so this gets this kind of Alcantara seat trim. But in terms of space, as I say, it's on a par with what you'd expect a C-sector hatchback to be. It's no better, no worse than other cars out there. Yes, it's compromised by that central transmission tunnel, but as I say, the seat itself is comfortable, so for 4, it ticks all the boxes, I would suggest. All right, little confession to make, actually. We've had the new Peugeot E308 down at the AutoEV offices, but it's coming in a test that you're going to see in January. So after this one, so make sure you're subscribed for that one so you don't miss it. And I think the 308 has a nicer cabin. Obviously the cars are based on the same platform. I think the Peugeot does have the nicer cabin. However, I don't want to take anything away from Vauxhall, because actually this is a really, really nice interior. There's a lot to like about this. Right, a couple of things to start with. So the main event is this, what they call the Pure Panel. In the Ultimate version, it's the Pure Panel Pro. It's 2 10-inch screens that you get. So you get one in front of the driver, which gives you always sort of like your information that you're going to kind of need in terms of, you know, speed, energy consumption, state of charge, all of that kind of gubbins. That's all in there. And then, of course, you've now got your infotainment system, which is across, obviously, on this side, across here. So, depending, obviously, on what you want. The nice thing about this as well is there are physical buttons in it, which I'll talk about just in a second. But yeah, it's a relatively easy sort of like thing to kind of navigate across. And as you see, as you flick through it, it does this kind of little animation, and you go to your kind of tiles here, where all your bits and pieces that you might want to sort of like use every now and again. So, for instance, your advanced driver assistance systems, they're in here. It's not laggy, it's just by the time it does that little animation, it just takes a little bit of time to bring the screen up. So it's not really kind of laggy as such, but you see, you press it and then it happens. So it's not quick as some other cars. And then obviously you've got you know, your phone, your settings, your seat options, your navigation and media, that kind of thing in there. You've also got a voice activation as well, so say, hey, the car's brand name, and that will obviously do voice recognition. It's not Google. It's not like a Google operating system. It runs off a Qualcomm Snapdragon processor unit, which I must admit I don't really know an awful lot about, because it's way above my pay grade understanding stuff like that. But I'm told it's very good. I'm told the processing power is powerful, and it's a very easy system for them to sort of like to use in terms of, you know, to integrate into the car. So that's all well and good. As I say, there are some shortcut buttons, which is nice as well. So if you want to adjust, you know, temperature, you don't have to go into a screen to adjust it. It's just these rocker switches here, and they do have, you know, a relatively quality kind of feel to them. They're not quite as nice as some other manufacturers. You know, you can feel them kind of move around a little bit, but you know, they've got a relatively nice kind of damped action to them. Above those, there are some capacitive buttons. So for things like your heated seat, on the Ultimate spec and the GS spec car, you know, they're not touch sensitive. You've physically got to press it, but it's a capacitive button, which is nice. So that's for all your shortcuts that you might need to get to. Plus as well, if you know, for your media, your radio, you've got a physical volume control on here. Plus you've got your usual up and down on the steering wheel as well. Now the steering wheel, you notice, is that kind of compass design as well. It's quite nice actually. It's relatively round, got a slightly flattened off bottom, and you've got the 2 spokes here for obviously, you know, your cruise control, driver assistance on the left, and then you've got your volume and your telephone and media on the right, and then just this nice little kind of bar that kind of comes down there in the centre. So yeah, it looks good. The quality's all right too, actually. You've got some nice kind of soft feel kind of rubber roundabout up on the top here, but then lower down you do move into the kind of scratchier plastics, and this obsession with the piano black, this plastic piano black finish, which I just detest. You know, it's just going to get dusty and all fingerprinted. In fact, you can start to see some of the scratches that are coming through on this press car. 615 miles. Anyway, there we go. Cup holders, yes, 2 of those, which obviously you can cover up if you want, with your nice kind of cover there. They just go down in there. You've also got a wireless charging pad again on the upper 2 trims, which is down in there. There's also a nice little kind of tray in there that folds out, so you can hide your Mars bars or your Polar Mints in there, away from prying eyes. And you've got this centre storage bit in here, which isn't massive. It would be enough for maybe a pair of sunglasses or something like that in there. And then again, your door bins on the side, but like the rear, they do feel a little bit plasticky in their operation and not lined along the bottom. Driving position is very good. The seats, Vauxhall are making a bit of a fuss about the seats on the car. They're these new, I think they call them AGR seats. They're to do with the people's health and posture. They've spent a lot of time, adjusting, getting the design of these just right for the support and everything. So, they're making a big fuss of these ones. But I think again they're just on the GS and the Ultimate model. You don't get them on a design. But as I say, on this design they've got the Ultimate. They've got the Alcantara in the centre as well, which kind of holds you quite nicely. Very good driving position. The driving position is excellent, and the column stocks are a nice, easy, just kind of finger stretch away, which is good. And you get a really nice clear view of the dashboard as well. Also on Ultimate models, you get a head-up display, which you can adjust the height of, which is good. And you also get a panoramic sunroof. Well, say panoramic, it doesn't go that far back. It's just a really big sunroof, but it does let a little light into the cabin at least. I didn't mention a glove box. It does have one, and it's a full-size one, which is also excellent too. The build quality feels good on first impressions. There's a lot to like about it. As I say, there's nicer materials at the top than there is down at the bottom. But the actual design of it, I do like. It's nice. It's a nice place to sit. You sit nice and low in the car as well. You don't sit up high. You sit really in the car rather than on the car. Which gives you that kind of nice kind of sort of sportier kind of driving feel. And also in terms of that, in terms of how if you're coming from another C-section hatchback, like an older Astra, maybe a Golf or a Focus, you don't have that kind of crossover style that a lot of people are going for, where you kind of sit up high. You've got this proper nice kind of 5-door family hatchback driving position. So yeah, on the whole, what can you say? It's good. It's all right. It does the job. There are better cars out there. I would say, I've driven down here in my Renault Megane. It'd be nice to have something like a Google operating system, but the Stellantis group don't do it anyway. They do their own software. That's a little bit, there's pros and cons for it. You get wireless CarPlay and I'll start again. You get wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay on top models. Not on the base model, and you've got smartphone mirroring elsewhere. You obviously get USB connectivity that's down in there, so so it's okay. Most people will default to that anyway, but as I say, I must admit I'm using the Google system in the Renault quite a lot at the moment, which is quite handy, and of course its voice activation works really, really well. But it's certainly, I would suggest, a step up from Volkswagen with ID.3, even the revised ID.3. Stellantis are pretty much, they're getting there with this, and there's just enough, as I say, that the physical buttons to allow you that quick access to things like the heated seat, heated steering wheel, and temperature controls and volume, where you don't have to delve into the screens, and things aren't buried 3 screens deep if you just want to flick on your heated seats. So that has to be applauded. Build quality, as I say, is good. Use of materials, people are doing it better personally. So on the whole, a fairly kind of nice design, well built, but middle of the road in terms of materials when it comes to the interior. And that, I think, could be a problem when we get to the pricing structure. Now, the Astra Electric gets the new kind of Gen 2, if you like, battery from Stellantis. So total capacity 54 kilowatt hours, usable capacity 51 kilowatt hours. WLTP range 258 miles, say Vauxhall, which means an average of around about 4.2 miles per kilowatt hour. And if they can achieve that, that's phenomenal. That's very good. It's way more than I'm getting out of my Renault Megane E-Tech. Well, that's got a 60 kilowatt hour battery. They've done it by lightening the car a little bit, concentrating on weight. It's only 58 kilos heavier than a plug-in hybrid Astra, which is pretty decent considering the bigger battery obviously you get with it. Charging speeds, 100 kilowatts, so 10 to 80%, usual kind of benchmark, half an hour. I think it's 26 minutes to go from 20 to 80% from a 100 kilowatt charger. If you're charging up from your 7 kilowatt wall box at home, you're looking at around about 8 hours, but it has an onboard 11 kilowatt charger as standard, so if you've got that 3-phase electricity, that can drop it down to 5 hours. And the other interesting thing with the Astra Electric, it comes with a heat pump as standard, so all that aids with its efficiency as well. So if those figures do stack up, it should be a pretty decent car when it comes to efficiency. So how does Astra drive out on the open road? Well, let's start with power. Single motor, and it's 156 PS, which is not the quickest, let's be honest. You know, my Megane's, everything else seems to be around about the 200 PS mark, 200 brake horsepower. 0 to 60 in the Astras are in about 9.2 seconds. Okay, all right. Now I know it's not, a performance car, but it is behind class best in that sense. The other thing is, it's got 3 driving modes. So it will depend on the driving mode you're in as to how much power it's actually delivering. So when you're in normal mode, you're not actually getting 156 PS. When you're in eco mode, you're getting a lot less than that as well. So that's how Vauxhall kind of do, well, PSA, Stellantis, whatever you want to call them. That's how they do it now. They limit the power and torque in each of the modes. One thing I will say is the range figure is calculated in normal mode, however. They don't stick it into eco to try and get that out, so fair play. But even so, performance-wise, yeah, it's not exactly what you call a firecracker. But again, let's look at some positives. It's a very comfortable driving position. The seat does hold you really well. I know this is an ultimate spec car, so it's got the sort of the slightly more kind of sportier style seats, but they do hold you well. The driving position, I say, is nice. Steering wheels are really nice. Sort of, a thing to hold. It's very comfortable. It's pleasingly round. You get a very good view of the dashboard. You get a very good view of all the controls for the car. You get good visibility out it. The mirrors are well positioned, so that's nice. But yeah, as I say, it's not exactly going to set your hair on fire, this car, in some respects. Now, there'll be a lot of people will say, well, that's absolutely fine, I don't need it to be anything more than just a normal kind of family car. And if that is the case, then dare I suggest your money might be better spent elsewhere. Now, there's a couple of things I've noted on this. The first thing is the ride quality. It's fine on a smooth surface. Now, as I say, bear in mind I've driven down here to the launch of the car in my Megane E-Tech, so I've got a real back-to-back comparison going on here, and it's not as refined as the Megane, despite Vauxhall saying that they've gone to great lengths to make the car as quiet as possible, acoustic windscreens, and they made the motor quieter. There's a lot more road noise coming through the car than there is in my Renault, and the ride quality isn't as good. The chassis itself is all right, in terms of its handling, it's fairly decent. In fact, no, that's being horrible. It's not fairly decent, it's good. There's a nice sort of progression to the steering. You turn in, there's a weight, it kind of builds up as you sort of apply some lock. You get a nice feedback from it, where your wheels are pointing, and the body stays relatively flat through the corners. But the trade-off is the ride isn't as supple as in, say, the Megane. Now look, we've just gone through a different road surface there. It's very smooth now, and this is it. If you're test driving it on this road surface, you go, this is quite quiet. As soon as it gets more, we're going to change now, it really amplifies it. You can really hear the road surface coming through the car, and you can feel it as well, which is a little bit disappointing. So as I say, in some respects, what they've done is they've not made a performance Astra, although the chassis could handle the power. It certainly feels like the handling's there for, sort of like a sportier drive. But by not doing that, by focusing more on it as a family car, they've then made this sort of like the qualities it's not so good at, so the refinement, the ride quality and that type of thing is more amplified. It makes it feel worse, dare I suggest. The driving modes, well, there's three: eco, normal and sport, as you'd expect. And I would defy anyone to tell me there's a difference between normal and sport. If I flicker into, I'm in normal at the moment, I put my foot down, it gathers speed. I'm not going to say accelerates, it gathers speed, that's what it does. I flicker into sport, it gathers speed. I can't feel the difference. I really can't. That's a dreadful thing to say, but it's true. I don't think it's quite as, oh, that's my turning, that's where I need to go. I don't think it's quite as the difference that Vauxhall seem to think that it is. I don't know. Anyway, there we go. Back to normal for me. Brake regen. Okay, well, the brakes are better than they have been on some Stellantis products. You don't have that kind of deadness at the top of the pedal now. They really have worked hard on that, and I know that, and I drove, as I say, we've driven the Peugeot, the E308, and that's the same. It's got a much more nicer progressive progressive brake pedal than they used to have. They don't have that wooden feel that they used to have. You go into B, which is the brake regen, and that's it. It's one level. Does it bring the car to a stop? Let me just see. No, it brings it to a creep. So if you're a one-pedal driving fanatic, you might go on okay with it, but it's not going to be the sort of like the one-pedal driving king that you get with some cars. You don't have the adjustability like you get in the Megane, like you get in sort of like say Hyundai and Kia with the paddles behind the steering wheel. It's typical Stellantis. It's once it's either on or it's off. You don't have sort of like anything in between in that sense. So that's a little bit disappointing as well. As I say, look, it's not a bad car. That's not what I'm saying at all. In a lot of ways, it's a perfectly good car. There's a lot to like about it. As I say, it's a comfortable driving position. You sit kind of low in it. You got a good view out. Everything's very, very easy to use, and the buttons are all there. And that's all fine. But there's other cars do it a lot better, in my opinion. And dare I suggest, for a lot less money. That's my issue with the Astra. It's an okay car, but in this day and age, with the EVs, is being okay good enough? Not when you're asking somebody to spend the thick end of 40 grand, I don't think it is. Sorry. Now this is where things go a little bit south for the Astra as far as I'm concerned. Now as I say, Vauxhall, they're not a premium brand, but nor should they be seen as a cheap brand, certainly not with the price the new Astra Electric comes in at. If you go for the design model, that kicks the range off at £37,795. Move up to the GS and you're just over £40,000. But if you want this Ultimate, then you're over £43,000. Now, in fairness to Vauxhall, what they have said is in terms of their PCP deals, they're going to be doing a 3-year PCP, they're also going to be doing a 5-year PCP, and they're lowering their APR from December 2023. And what they've calculated it out at, in the equivalent Astra petrol, you're actually, the savings you make by going electric, your monthly payments will end up around about the same, if that makes sense. So what you pay slightly more in monthly payment to have the electric, you then save that that equivalent amount by being electric, and obviously having that sort of like lower price, not having the running costs that you have with an internal combustion engine car. But even so, that's much more, that's a higher starting price than the Renault Megane E-Tech. It's much higher than the starting price of an MG4, obviously. In fact, the starting price of the base Astra is more than the top of the range MG4. And then of course the other competition that's out there as well, which has been quite good value for money, such as the BYD Dolphin and the Aura Funky Cat. So maybe value isn't one of the Astra's strengths, shall we say. I will think of a positive, however, because there's a huge amount of Astras which are obviously bought by company car users, or sorry, got by company car users, salary sacrifice, that type of thing. And obviously if you are a company car user, then you're only paying 2% benefit in kind on something like that, which is obviously much, much lower. So I am looking for a positive in this section, but I am struggling, especially then when you realise that the warranty is still just 3 years on a new Astra. Now, despite the onslaught of SUVs and crossovers, there is still quite a bit of competition for the Astra, because this C sector area of the market is still a huge one, especially in Britain. It takes nearly 50% of all car sales in Britain. So it is an important market sector, so it's important that we discuss the competition that Vauxhall are going to face. Well, of course, from within Stellantis Group itself. It's got its compatriots, hasn't it, from Peugeot with the E308 and of course the Citroën EC4 and EC4X, those twins. So it's facing competition within there. Of course, the upside there is at least it's sharing the battery efficiency, performance, etc., with those two cars as well. Now, from Volkswagen Group, there's two competitors there. Obviously, there's the newly revised ID.3 and Cupra's Born. And of course, from Renault, we've got the Megane E-Tech, which was not only our best compact family car in 2022, not only our viewer's choice in 2022, but it also took the Complete Car of the Year award in the AutoEV awards in 2022. And that's my current long term, and as I say, it's facing very stiff competition from there. We can't not mention the MG4. I mean, that is without doubt the value for money king as far as we're concerned. I mean, the SE model starts at £27,000, £10,000 less than this car. But of course, the range has expanded. Not only do you have the standard battery, you've also got a long range battery now, and of course there's the performance variant, the X-Power, all of which come in below the price of the basic Astra. BYD, another manufacturer that we've seen enter the fray this year, not only in the SUV market with the Atto 3 and obviously the saloon car market with the Seal, but also in the C sector hatchback with the Dolphin. As I say, not a car I would suggest you'd buy on desirability, but in terms of affordability, that is quite a car in what it offers for the money. And of course there's also the Aura Funky Cat, which is about to get a name change, oddly enough. It's about to have its name change, which oddly is probably the last thing I would have changed about that car, in terms of there are other things I would change first before the name. But there you go, that's another car to consider. My point is, there is a lot of competition, and a lot of good competition out there for this new Astra Electric. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the new Vauxhall Astra Electric. Well, we like its styling. It's well equipped with 3 distinctive trim levels. The projected efficiency, the familiarity with the brand, and of course the fact that you can have it as an estate. What we don't like, well, there are still some compromises to be made by not being a dedicated EV. Its dynamics and refinement, we feel, aren't up to class best. It offers a poor warranty package. It's pitched at a very high price, and therefore it offers poor value for money. Let me be very, very clear here. There is a very likeable car in the Astra Electric. And the fact that you can have it also as the estate, the sports tourer, just broadens that appeal. But that stumbling block of that price is something that I think is going to put a lot of people off, the poor value for money. And of course, it's not built on a dedicated EV platform, and therefore will carry some compromises. Despite what Vauxhall and Stellantis Group say about their CMP2 platform, there are still some compromises to be made. Yes, the efficiency appears to be very, very good. However, I think there's a lot of people doing it a lot better for a lot less money. What I think about is this is how I'm going to summarise this. I think this car will turn a lot of Vauxhall drivers into electric car drivers. In other words, if you've been a Vauxhall owner and you drive a current Astra and you're walking into your Vauxhall dealership to maybe upgrade it, then take a look at this car, because I think it will appeal to you. What I don't think it will do is turn a lot of electric car drivers into Vauxhall owners, and that's a bit of a shame. Thank you once again for watching yet another episode of AutoEV. As always, please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, and once you've done that, press the little bell button that's down below, because then that way you'll get a notification of when our next video is uploaded and is gone live. If you have enjoyed it, then make sure you give it a thumbs up, and of course let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are you a Vauxhall driver? Is this a car that's going to interest you? Are you considering it, or were you looking at one of the rivals instead? You want to have a drive in one of these, and tell me what your thoughts are? As I say, let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are. Now remember, we're across all social media platforms as well, so Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, so please give us a follow there as well. And if this has just whetted your appetite for even more electric car reviews, or maybe you're new to us and you're wondering what we're all about, then just stick on the YouTube channel, because there's loads of videos there, not just road test reviews, but twin tests, used car buying advice, van reviews, motorbike reviews, even our electric icon series. All it remains for me to say is thank you once again for watching. Thank you for continuing to support the AutoEV channel. I'll see you again soon.